Hello and welcome to the Awakening Together YouTube channel. If you'd like more information on our community and our non-dual direct path teachings, please visit our website, awakening-together.org. This installment is our Satsang, our live Satsang that we had with Simone Anliker. For more information on Simone, visit her website, simoneanliker.com. Hope you enjoy the Satsang.
I'm so happy we're here. Welcome, Simone.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here.
And Jacqueline, I pronounced Simone's name Simone Anliker, and I was told by my friend Simone that she likes the way I pronounce it. So I don't know if it's correct or not, but it works. Yeah. But before we begin the conversation, I was spending a fair amount of time this afternoon in, I don't know if the word is getting ready for the satsang, but getting quiet to step into the satsang. And there are tears in my eyes now because what came to me this afternoon, and so the fact that we were just having these conversations it doesn't surprise me anymore, was that I would just begin with the prayer with the intention that everyone here has a direct experience, something to light up what is required for the next step. That's all. I expect that it'll look different for all of us. The other thing that was coming to me, and I will do this formal invitation, but the other thing that was coming to me is in a previous life, 30 some odd years ago, I worked very closely with the Dale Carnegie. I was a graduate assistant. I helped people through the Dale Carnegie course, and we taught people how to give a presentation in 2 minutes, which is something that has served me ever since. It's really taught me how to be really clear. And the key to giving a presentation in 2 minutes is to tell everybody, here's what you're about to learn, and then share it, and then remind everybody at the end. So to me, this entire experience just sits right into everything that I've learned and everything that I love about Awakening Together, which is relax, stop thinking, follow guidance, and everything that occurs is going to be way beyond anything that your limited thinking mind would have ever predicted. And so that, if you get nothing else out of it, you may get really excited about spiritual NVC. You may join the Global Dyad Meditation Project. I'm there every day, and we'll talk about all of that. You may get real excited and want to learn more about the trauma work or whatever. But what we do here at Awakening Together is we awaken together by understanding that we're all in it together, that there's no one higher or below, and we're all on our own path, and we're always provided exactly what we need when we need it. And Simone and I had a conversation for the Awareness podcast a couple of weeks ago, and Simone, your story is a perfect demonstration of what happens when one just says, I wonder what's next. And here's the other thing that's very interesting, because I think I'm not going to read this. We'll go right into your story. I just want to point out that Simone started in law, and there are at least 2 others in this room that help run Awakening Together that started in law. And it's very interesting to me that man-made laws versus spiritual laws, stepping from one to the other, kind of feels like going from the Old Testament to the New Testament, but that's just me. So I'm going to leave it at that for the initial introduction. A lot of people in this room met you actually a couple of weeks ago because you blessed us in the sanctuary on Saturday afternoon when we did that amazing intro to the dyads and stepped into the dyads. And we really had a great mixing of people from the Global Dyad Meditation Project and Awakening Together. And it was a phenomenal experience. But why don't we start at the beginning, Simone, and talk about what about your journey, and we'll lead up and we'll stop at the highlights, and the things that are going on in your world today. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So you want to tell people about your life before stepping off the beaten track?
You just gave me the key. Yes, I didn't even remember. Yes, I started with law. Well, I started earlier with other stuff, but somehow also when I introduced myself as in a former life, I've been into law. And what I just came into my mind when I heard you say this, what law actually gave me, and I'm still very, very grateful. Law gave me a very clear thinking and a very logical thinking, and a thinking that helps me to question things. So it's something about that way that I'm really, really grateful for. And I left it, and maybe the shift has come from I'm still love to understand things. It still has to make sense to me. If it doesn't make sense, and in the sense of, I want to have, for me, it needs to make sense because my mind always goes, I'm a born teacher. Even when I was a child, I remember at the time I wasn't thinking of teaching one day, and not like school teaching, but I remember me as a young girl, we had huge windows and I was sitting on the balcony and I was teaching myself. And somehow it's similar now, sitting in front of the computer and also seeing myself. So I did see myself and I was teaching and I was just imagining how people are fascinated by what I said. So it's something about that understanding I love, because my mind goes, how can I integrate this? How can I bring this forth and also share it with people? And on my way, I learned the way of teaching I like the most and is touching me the most when I hear it is when it comes from experience. So I like what you just said, having a direct experience of, in whatever way that is coming to us. There's something happening inside of me when I do have a direct experience, because then I'm speaking not about stuff, but I'm speaking from experience. And for me, that's when I'm awake. When I hear someone kind of speaking from experience, it's, wow, there's something that's touching me. And I imagine that's also happening when I'm speaking. I don't know. It's just the way I'm receiving it, the most satisfying, I would say. So, studying the law and then even going into taxes and then realizing, no, that's not really what I want. And then having that wonderful experience of just applying, following a calling, applying for starting adult teaching. And then I got into that. And at the side or behind, or just I had a spiritual practice for many, many, many years. So I was in spiritual communities and I did meditation. And it was until I met the teachings of Marshall B. Rosenberg on nonviolent communication, where something clicked inside of me when I had that sense of, here I'm receiving something that helps me to the how to. how to connect within myself, how to connect with the divine, how to connect with another person. And he just put it into a very simple format of connecting with feelings, connecting with needs. And on my way, as I progressed and got deeper with that teaching, I realized, well, it's really something about me. When I talk about needs, it's always about soul qualities. I talk about my own deep inner experience. And it's not so much what I get out there and what I want other people to do in the sense of fulfilling my needs. It's much more about realization of, this is who I am. I am eternally love. I am eternally freedom. I am eternally compassion. And it's more to how do I bring that into the world. So on that journey, I realized there's a lot of trauma in my system still. There is healing needed. And so I also on my way, I became a trauma therapist. And now the whole combination of the NVC, the nonviolent communication, and then, yes, a huge part also the diet helped me to really listen more to my inner guidance, especially your favorite, Cindy, the diet with the intuitive writing, to really deeply connect and get guidance from within. And in that sense, becoming my own guru, my own teacher.
These steps, going from a world of taxes and law with a spiritual practice on the side to make one's life better, into becoming fully enamored and becoming a trainer and moving up in the standard NVC world, and then moving from there to be trained as a trauma, to do trauma therapy, and then discovering dyads, and then the spiritual practices and bringing them all together. Those particular steps, correct me if I'm wrong, but they weren't planned, no. Right? Can you talk about, is there any, and I could let people know, for instance, in your spiritual online NVC courses, there could be 80 plus people from all over the world that come to train with you a couple of times a year. It's a very large, it's a large group of people that come to do the spiritual NVC work, and then there's an advanced spiritual NVC work. There are hundreds of people that are part of this Global Dyad Meditation Project. We have 3 rooms open. We open rooms at least 3 times a day, 7 days a week. I've done dyads in at least 25 different countries. And your book on the dyads are at this point, it's 6 or 7 different languages, right? So the path, and we could talk about how all of these things are touching people, but I wonder, the path from going from law to working with people with spiritual NVC and being part of this Global Dyad Meditation Project, and sitting with people with all sorts of things from around the world. Is there any part of that could have been logically planned?
No. It's really, I think part of it I already had in my system of just trusting the guidance and trusting the impulses, and they come. So just the way I got introduced to NVC was special. There was, I was thinking of going into a mediation, kind of the combination of law and communication. And I was sitting at home and I thought, well, there is just a course starting. I've never done this, but I just dare now to call them and say, I want to come in and sit in for half a day and just see if that's something for me. And they said, well, we've never done it. And then I said, well, maybe it's the first time now. So either they say yes or no. So I went there, and the lady, the teacher who was there, I was talking to her, and she said, well, you might be interested in 2 books. So she gave me a little book on mediation, and she gave me the Marshall Rosenberg book. And I've never heard about nonviolent communication before. So I open the book and I read the first sentence in the book. And it says something similar to the joy in the joy in compassionately giving and receiving is a natural thing for human beings, something like this. And I read that sentence and I know immediately that's truth. There was no doubt about it. So I started reading, and not even having read the whole book, I said, I have to know how that thing works. So I was looking for becoming a trainer, which I was within 1 year. I was just happy, lucky that I could just have all my training days. And then meeting Marshall, there was one guy we connected, and he said, whenever you have a chance to go and see Robert Gonzalez, you will see that he is just speaking your heart. And it took me another couple of years. I looked him up, and then I met him, and I knew the first hour just listening to him, he had, after 3 years, it was one missing piece. So I stayed with Robert and there I got introduced to the diets. And again, doing the diets, my first diet, I was with Chinese doctor. We were in the same class, and it was at that time, Robert Gonzalez still used the prompt, tell me who you are, because he learned from Charles Berner, enlightenment techniques. And so in that diet, I recognized this other, we both recognized each other. It was just like, wow, here we are again in this lifetime together, and just knowing who we were. So it's that being introduced, being guided to something, and then almost like being hooked to it. So I got into the diets, and why the global diets was coming into manifestation. This was with quite a lot of crisis inside of me, because I was sitting here in Mexico, where I am right now, after an international intensive training. And I was thinking over the time between Christmas and New Year, that we have this, we call them rough nights in Europe. It's like, it's said that the layers are thinner and we have more access to the spiritual world in this time. And I was thinking, well, what would I offer? And it was very clear, almost like an inner knowing, not almost, it was very clear, an inner knowing, I have to bring the diets. This was by the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. I have to bring the diet process online. I have to make it available for as many people as they want. And it has to be for free. It was also very clear. Don't make a business out of it. At the time, I just followed. So, and the interesting thing for me was that I haven't invented the diet. It's not my child. I learned it from Robert. It's almost, I had a sense of almost stealing something and not having the right to bring that online. And the interesting thing was, whenever I stopped doing, I got into fears and anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I was just so nervous. So the only thing that was helping me is just to keep on going and trusting. I'm just doing what I'm told here. And then I got another impulse to include everyone who wanted to be part of the project, to inform people. So this is what I did. And what happened was just like doors were opening up. And so at the beginning, I started once a week, Sunday evening, because I knew that's what I could offer. Robert Gonzalez, he was really happy about that because he thought, like, he told me, you're living my dream. I thought, I didn't tell him, no, this is not your dream. This is my dream. But, you know, in the end, it doesn't really matter. I was very clear. If I wouldn't be the one to bring it into manifestation, then the higher circles would have just looked for another one. So that's my understanding how the work is done. It's not about me. It's not about Simone. It's not about anyone. It's just there is that almost like they look for the channels. Who is ready? Who has the know-how? I had the know-how about Zoom and all that stuff. So who has the know-how? Who is the best one who can serve the purpose? And you know, it happened in 2017. No one here on earth had an idea that in 2019, 20, 21, we had a lockdown, and people they needed something where they could connect online from their home. And so I was just ready at the time. So if I wouldn't have done it, they would just have found someone else. So it's not up to me. And just how it's functioning now. I mean, Cindy, you came to it. There's so many hosts who just give their heart, their time. And sometimes there were moments where I thought we are more hosts here than participants, but it shows me the hosts are there because they want to do the diets, because there is meaning for them, and that's what they like to share. So it's, again, talking about sharing experience. That's why the whole thing functions. And now we're in year number 5, 6, I think, huh? And it's still running.
I'm pretty sure everybody here may know, but in case there's somebody here that's new to the diets, can you give maybe just like a 5-minute, what is the diet and why is it so special?
Well, for me, the diet means two people. So we are sitting two people opposites of each other, like on Zoom, because now Zoom made it also possible. We have breakout sessions so we can meet one-on-one, or we meet in a group setting where two people sit together. So it means two. And the diets, as I said, Charles Berner had this idea. He was a spiritual teacher, and in the 60s, he wanted to help people to have a much quicker way of realization and enlightenment experience of who they are. So in a moment of leisure, he had this insight, bring in this diet program. His wife was using they both were psychotherapists. So she was using that in psychotherapy when she was working with couples. So one person asking a question, the other person is just, and then being present without action, and then the other person is just going inside and sharing. And then it developed from there. And when I got to know it, I just thought this is not just another way of meditating, because I have someone's presence. It helps me to stay focused on what I want to focus my thinking or my observation on. So having someone it's not a dialogue, not interacting, but being present with open eyes, being there, holding space for me and with me, holding that sacred space. That helps me to stay focused in what I want to ponder on, what I like. So we do get an invitation or an inquiry or a question, and then I'm going inside, and then different to a silent meditation. I'm not just tracking and see what's coming up inside of me. I also speak it out into that space, into that sacred space we both co-create. And this speaking out, Charles already realized that when we speak out, what emerges as that result of what I'm pondering on, my mind starts to quiet down. So very often, that's what we realize, that we come into the dyad. We're very busy still because of something goes on. And the moment we dive in and we have the presence, we notice that the more and more, so the whole process is like 40 minutes, 5 minutes, change. Every 5 minutes we change. Once I'm the listening person, once I'm the sharing person. So I'm just calming down. My mind calms down. And I hope not too long in future that we do have brainwave measurements, that when we're in dyads, that we do see, I'm very positive, our brain waves goes down to delta, which we have in our my dog. She needs just a moment of attention. One moment.
That's Emma. Her dog, same name as my daughter. And just while she's gone, it's this whole thing. I had never heard the word dyad, and I was in a conversation with Jacqueline, and I think she brought it up, and I reached out to Anne, and then Anne did a retreat, and in the same way, I just fell in love. I had no idea why. There's no thinking involved. Hey, Emma. And Anne wasn't available to do a dyad with me every day. And so I went to Google. Google could be your best friend. And I literally typed in, it was the fall of 2020. And I asked Google, where can I go to do online dyads? Because something in me required that kind of connection. And I found the Global Dyads. And what's so beautiful is that you take an orientation, and I started within a couple of weeks, probably not much longer than that. It was another one of these holy nights. Simone was in Mexico and decided that for 12 days she was going to try this experiment in 2020, where we did a standard dyad, and then we wrote with a prompt, we wrote with our inner guidance, and then read it out loud. It's a 90-minute process, instead of, we typically give a dyad 75 minutes for all the check-ins and everything else. And I think Simone was committing to 2 weeks, and we haven't missed a day since December of 2020. It's the same kind of story. And there are links, and if anybody here is feeling prompted to learn more about that community and this community is similar in the fact that it is, for the most part, open door when it comes to the dyads. There is an orientation if you're not familiar with the dyads, but after that, you're given a link and you're given a schedule, and you come to do dyads whenever you want. It's just extraordinary. Emma wants to join us.
Yeah, she just was seeing something that upset her. So now let's see how if she can be quiet.
So, and if anybody wants to ask any questions at all about that part of this work, go ahead and just raise your hand. And while I'm waiting for that, I am much less familiar with the spiritual NVC part of your work, and I'd love for you to talk about it and how people can get involved and what people are discovering from it. I think Rhoda went through the training, so if she wants to say anything about it. And like I said, at any time, if anybody wants to join the conversation, just go ahead and use the reaction button. That's how I'll know, or leave a message in the chat. But I would love...
I'm actually happy to, maybe Rhoda, if you would like to share just like one or two of your highlights, or what you took from the and I just renamed it. It's called Embrace now, and I will say a little bit about it. But maybe Rhoda, if you're willing to share.
I'm happy to share. I would love to share. There were so many fabulous teachings in that training, and one of the things that really stuck home for me was the work that we did around acceptance, and what happens when we are choosing between authenticity and acceptance at a very young age, and the programming that creates. And for me, that was so very helpful to notice that is all that's happening right now. There's an old program here that is playing because at some point at a very young age, if there wasn't full acceptance, authenticity didn't play, because authenticity got swapped out for the desire to be accepted. And so that for me was just hugely helpful to just see, oh, programs playing. Just really kind of like a quick look and say, okay, I can let that go now. So that was probably the thing that I continue to use to this day. But there were so many just beautiful meditations. There's one that we often get the opportunity to do again, which is the one that you created after reviewing Michael Singer. And that particular meditation is just really a heart-centered, another accepting myself exactly where I am sort of meditation. So those would be my two top things. If Anne's in the building, Anne also took the course. Maybe she'll have other items to share. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Simone. I'd love to share. Cindy, is that good? Simone, that good? I absolutely loved it. I was so excited. I called up Rhoda. I'm like, we got to do this. Rhoda's like, all right, let me see. And Shauna was lovely enough to pick up the meditations. Usually I'm on a meditation rotation. You know, what I loved is I knew that, so we have a founder of this organization, Regina, who is, does the journaling and does the looking at her mind and gets real clear about what's playing. And there'd be so much energy in the system. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't sit still with it. And I had already found my way to dyads, but luckily into an enlightenment intensive that took. But I had on my own had figured out I needed to get into some trauma work, because the energy in the system, it just overwhelmed the system. And that makes it sound very clinical. It overwhelmed me. I would just go to bed. I would just shut it down. And so what I loved so I had already been exposed to it just through my commitment to do this spiritual work, and yet trying to find a way to actually be able to stay in the game, keep my head in there. And what I loved is how you in that program distilled so many of the things I kind of tried to put together. It's just such a beautiful way that you distilled it. So a couple of the takeaways: I still do walk talks. I still do them with Yvonne, and I do them with others, and it's just gorgeous. And a walk talk is a walking, talking dyad, where you just get in touch, right? What is here now? And so it's just gorgeous. But the other real take home for me is the most simple thing in the world, which is the meditation you fashioned around Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Full attention is full acceptance. I still say it. I still live it. when acceptance is just a bridge too far, when it's just too much going on, coming back to full attention is full acceptance. Just trust that. Just keep watching. Just hang in there. It has just been incredible. And so I can't say enough about that program. And the last thing I would say is the chance to join with so many people around the world with our buddy system was just fantastic. That was just icing on the cake. So anyway, I just honor the work you did to learn that stuff should go in a program, and then, oh my God, putting it in a program that just keeps moving every week. So I love that I get the chance to say thank you. Thank you so much, Anne. It's really lovely to hear what it is that that sticks with you and what that inspired you and was helpful. And again, for me, what I'm sharing in the program, and the reason why I changed I was looking for quite some time. Again, I started to call it spiritual NVC because I had that insight when the program kind of downloaded to me. Normally I remember where I was sitting and where it was. So I knew there was something about I'd like to have the NVC in it, and I'd like to have the combination with trauma. But then also I wanted the spirituality to be the focus, not so much on the NVC communication model, but much more on the spirituality of it. So what came together, and I'm really happy. Recently I just started a new class, and I said, I love it. I love it because what I'm sharing is basically what's working for me. So again, I'd love this way of teaching and sharing that it's coming from my own experience. It was helpful in one or other, or still very helpful for me. And, it's always, I'm so convinced that whatever we are sharing, whatever we are committed to share, it's because we need it the most. So it's not that I'm sharing something, I'm kind of up here, and of course I have gone through a lot of healing, but sharing what I'm sharing is still helping me. It's reminding me, and I remember through sharing, oh yes, that's when you're in that situation the next time, just listen to yourself and then start again going back. I re-listen to my own meditations. I'm going back to what I was teaching. Just because very often when I am teaching, it's just coming, it's flowing through me. And sometimes I think, oh, wow, that's interesting. That's nice. Or I do have new insights. It's coming while I'm teaching. So the combination of this Embrace program is really, it's trauma work. I think it's so important that we all are trauma informed, because especially when we're on a spiritual path, at least that was in my case, it was my case, that I'd rather transcend than transform. Transcend means I'm very good in thinking and going into meditation and then just being in a different space. But it's not transformed. And how do I notice it's not transformed? When I'm in a one-on-one connection with a human being and I'm not able to access all these beautiful teachings and thinking and wisdom I have, and I'm not able to connect, and I'm not able to live it in daily life and
this, I'm just really grateful to my late friend, Robert Gonzalez. That's what I learned from him. The difference between transcendence and transformation. Transformation is I have worked through it. That doesn't mean I have to go and dig and do archaeological work in going all that early childhood stuff. It's there in the system anyhow. It will show up anyhow. So to be trauma informed means that we do have an understanding that just living today in this world, we all have traumatic experiences. We all carry trauma in our bodies. And Gabor Mate says it so beautifully. Trauma is not what happened to us. It's the way how we react inside of us to that what happens to us. And what the trauma is, that we basically disconnect from our essence. And so for me, becoming aware of trauma is actually my spiritual path. It's healing from what disconnected me from my essence. And healing means I'm not the one who is going to heal you. That's up to your inner healer. What I truly believe, how I can support people is in showing them ways how to reconnect with their essence and their source. And then the wisdom inside shows them what's the next step. So it's sometimes just that door opener. And then, for example, through the intuitive writing, then you have something that helps you to listen to your own inner wisdom and then go to the next step. And so doing the trauma work, combining it with the spirituality underneath, then I say for those people who like to go more into NVC, nonviolent communication, then learn the technique. And then you will be able to have a completely different access to the technique because you have that background, that spiritual background. And it's more, it's more that an awareness practice. So becoming trauma informed, then also becoming trauma sensitive. So the moment, this is my story. I lived in spiritual communities, and the way how we treated each other was far from being compassionate with each other. It was just crucial. It was almost like we have that saying, we were hitting each other's the knowledge, I would say, not the wisdom. We were kind of hitting each other on our heads with the wisdom and telling each other, well, you should be like that, you should be like that. But we were not able, it was not integrated. We were not able to really live from a compassionate heart. And why not? Because there is still so much trauma inside of us. So becoming trauma sensitive means that you're aware, you know what trauma is, you're aware of your own trauma that still is in your bone, and you're aware that in this moment, what's happening between the two of us or in a situation is not about the situation. It's because there is old stuff stimulated inside of you, and that's the way how you learned how to react. And as Rhoda said, this basically two needs, attachment or attention and authenticity. And as children, we have no choice. There is always, those two, to be like we are, just how we are and show up in the world how we are. The moment when this showing up and being who we are is somehow in conflict with belonging, with attachment, with acceptance or being accepted, always belonging wins. So we give up on being ourselves. We give up on being truthful to ourselves to stay connected with our caregivers. And it's for survival reasons. The problem is when we grow older, we take this into our adult life, and for example, it shows up that you want to speak in a group, you want to speak your truth, but then you think, oh, what do other people think about me if I say this? Maybe they don't like me anymore, or maybe it's going to be received. So again, this is actually a trauma response. And becoming aware of that. So that's the sensitivity that maybe in a certain moment when I get triggered, when I react in a really strong way, to be, actually, it's probably because my trauma is activated. So using this, then of course having tools that I hope, this is just the tools that I use. That's what I'm sharing, that these are helping people to then self-regulate, to have a different way, and then to live a more fulfilling life in whatever way you want to communicate. But it's just helping you to become more aware, to become more reconnected to your essence. And then that is meant by I'm living who I am, and I bring myself into into manifestation. So how do it's more about what's the English word? To bring myself into the moment, to the word doesn't come in, comes maybe a moment later. But it's a self-expression. That's the word I was looking. It's a self-expression, and it's not me as Simone or my small little me. It's actually giving the divine that wants to come through, giving them a vehicle, and being able and daring. And that's the piece. That's what I learned from Caroline Myss, to listen to our intuition, to listen to divine guidance. Actually it needs courage, because very often it guides us in a way that we as a personality wouldn't want to go. So to be able to follow your intuition needs courage, and courage again comes from that world. It needs that hard wisdom, and to follow your calling. And that isn't always an easy task. My experience is whenever I do follow my inner guidance, it never ever leads me astray. So it's just really beautiful to do so, even though sometimes it's like, well, I don't know, I don't want to go there.
Like stepping off a cliff.
It is. I love it. Stepping off the cliff and then making the experience you can fly and you're not falling. And again and again. And whenever trauma is stimulated, it's also good to bring in the neuroscience and our amygdala and how she acts. Amy, I call her Amy. She just wants me to be safe. She doesn't, if I stand at the cliff, she does everything for me not to jump, because she has every good reason to tell me why jumping is just the most stupid thing to do, because she doesn't want me to be happy, or that she just wants me to be safe and to have an understanding. Oh, today Amy is at work. Then to still be able to do it anyhow and see, hey, it's never as bad as I imagine it to be, because all the thinking is trauma response. And just to have an understanding to have an awareness that this is, I'm pretty sure, maybe just a few very lucky people who don't carry trauma, but most of us carry it in our bones, in our system, and it will work out. So the program is really a combination of all that, what at the moment just helping me to manage this life I'm living.
I am inspired to request one little tool that I've seen participants of your spiritual NVC use in the Global Dyad rooms more often than anything else, other than the dyads and the intuitive writing. But it's something we never talk about here. So if you could talk about and maybe even teach havening, I would be very grateful, because I watch people do it every day.
It is. And maybe before I go there, havening is a beautiful technique for self-regulation. We also use it as a trauma, working with trauma, and it is developed by two beautiful doctors, Ron and Stephen Rudin. Ron was a family doctor, and he had a PhD in biochemistry, and he just wanted to find something that is helping his patients. And over a lot of research, what he found out that we have this healing power in our hands. And I'm not going into the details about that, but the healing power in our hands, what we actually also did during the pandemics, we were washing our hands. So just kind of washing your hands, doing like this, creates, and there's still research is going on, creates delta waves. And I was just talking a little bit about the delta waves before. Delta waves we have when we are going into deep sleep. That is, delta waves are created when we feel safe. So the havening, and haven means a safe haven. So there are three moves. We kind of wash our hands. Very often we do that very naturally when we stand in front of people. Kind of just do this, or you can do it in your face, and we do that also very naturally. Like when we feel really stressed, sometimes we go just into our face and just kind of caress our face, going like this. Or we also do just, and now I have to see if this, I actually do havening on my dog. When she is too excited, I just go like this. So you can even do this on your with your pet. So you cross your arms from your shoulders down to your elbows, and not going up, but just always going up again, going up from your shoulders down to your elbows. And by just doing this, if you're in a moment of agitation or irritation, you just can do this, or just, we actually calm down our system. And when we were children, what we learn, normally children need their mothers or caregivers to help them regulate. So what we do with the havening is actually to self-regulate. And there's a whole science behind it. I'm not going into that. And also, like, we do have little protocols. So when you get really agitated, you could actually just start the havening and imagine, and that has to do how the trauma is encoded, that you imagine to walk up or down a stair, and counting, you do the havening, you don't think about the troubling situation, but you just imagine that you walk up a stair and count to 20. and just in your pace, or you can hum, not sing, but hum a nursery rhyme. So just go like this. So maybe to make this, let's do this together. If you, and probably now it's more difficult to think of a situation. Think of a situation that is disturbing for you. Something that might have happened, and still when you think about it, you still notice there is irritation, or maybe anxiety, or maybe some kind of a fear. And just for a moment, just think about it, and then you can let go of it in a moment as I ask you from a 0 to a 10. 0 is no agitation at all, and a 10 is highly, highly agitated. So just think about that moment, that situation that is disturbing to you. See on that scale from 0 to 10, whereabout were you at? And notice this in your mind. And then I invite you to kind of imagine to take a shower, or to go for a swim, or to stand under a beautiful waterfall and just let everything go. Just leave your system, and then start with the havening. And maybe if the stairs are disturbing for you, you can walk in nature or at the beach. To just take something where you can take like 20 steps, and it's something that is pleasant for you. So I'm going to count for you. Normally you can do this in your pace, and you can count loud for yourself. So I imagine to just walk at the beach. That's as I'm here in Mexico, I just walk at the beach, and I just see the sand and the water, and I'm counting from 1 to 20. So I'm counting aloud. 1, 2, and you keep on havening. 3, 4, and you just notice the sand or the steps you're taking on your staircase. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And maybe you notice already that you do start, sometimes we start yawning. You just keep on going with the havening. Just maybe you notice that there is a little bit more relaxation. Let's do another round of, let's go with Old MacDonald and just hum it. Hopefully I can do this. Mm-hmm. And you keep on havening in your face with your hands on your arm. Okay, and then take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and breathe out a little bit longer. And then just notice how you are right now in this moment. Maybe you look around and just see how are you right now in this moment. And then from a 10 to a 0, thinking about that moment or that situation you were just thinking about, just notice from a 10 to a 0, whereabout are you? How much is there still agitation or not? And if you'd like, maybe you write down where you started and where you're at right now, if you want to write it into the chat. So we just have a bit of an idea of where you started on your scale and where you're at right now. Wow, 6 to 1, 8 to 3, 3 to 0, 7 to 1. Yeah, wonderful. Yes.
I will see people in the dyads when they are inquiring into something that begins to create a reaction, and they have taken your spiritual NVC class. They'll just, like, I don't even know if they always even notice, they'll just immediately begin havening while they inquire, and it shifts the space very, very quickly, and it allows for a deeper inquiry. Just
to say, like, when we have Kate Truitt, she's actually our scientist, neuroscientist and psychotherapist. She says, if we have, and it makes sense to me, if we are in a situation where we get triggered and we become highly emotional, we normally don't have that much access to our thinking brain. So, and if this is completely accurate or not, but it helps me. So if I am on a 10, I'm kind of, or on a 6, 7, it's almost like 60-70% of my consciousness is being immersed into that emotional turmoil. So it's quite difficult to have a clear head or a clear thinking. And we have, like, maybe if we're on an 8, we have like maybe 20% brain capacity to think clear. And we also know when we are taking decisions or coming from that highly emotional space, it's very often not to our best. So what we do with the havening is we regulate our system. And by this, our system gets the information, hey, it's safe, it's okay. So it's a way of reparenting, of helping our system to calm down, to get this highly agitated mind, which is not a serving mind, to calm down and again come into more a coherent state between brain and heart. And when we're more coherent, we are kind of smarter. At least Joe Dispenza says it, we're smarter when we are in a coherent state, because then I think what is meant, then brain and heart are functioning together again. So if you're still on a 5, I would actually invite you to just do another round till you're on a 2 or on a 1. You don't have to go to a 0, but it's just to help you to calm down. And so just calming your system down with this very easy tool of, we have it in our hands and we do it somehow. If I'm really upset or so, sometimes I just give myself a hug. So it's wisdom that Ron, just through his research, found that what we're doing actually has a neuroceutical, he calls that, neuroceutical impact on our system. So we self-regulate down. And it's a cool, wonderful tool that more and more is used in schools. So we're just bringing it, to more people. So it's something is growing. So that it was another guidance I received. I decided after, I thought, no, I don't need that. But then I just saw how wonderfully it helps me in so many situations, and how beautifully I can use it, and also help other people with it. So I also became a Havening trainer. So I'm now able to also train people for especially those who want to use this professionally, to just help in so many ways. And you can use it for phobias, for anxieties, for just recently was working with a person with PTSD, and just also if you're just really upset and helping someone to regulate. And you can teach it to little children. They immediately understand, especially there the singing helps, and it's just a wonderful tool. So I'm happy to hear, Cindy, that you noticed this, that people really start using it when they get emotional or upset in their diet, as it really helps to downregulate.
They do. And I'm curious, the singing and the humming, I know humming is used to help regulate the vagal nerve, right? Exactly. So I imagine that's all part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, a big part of what we do in Awakening Together is we're taught to do inquiry, to get to root cause beliefs and a lot of other things. But when we are charged about something, the invitation is always to rest from the story and wait for the storm to pass before we dive deep. And this one Havening tool feels like it would be just a great complement to what we call rest, accept, and trust.
Yeah, I can imagine that it's very helpful. In the Embrace program, I have one exercise from Michael Singer, where he says, just relax and release. And that I now would combine it with the Havening, just to relax and release. And this is just what I just heard you say, that this is something you're using too. Yeah. And it's very difficult sometimes, because when we are so agitated to go into those places. So it's that building resilience.
Well, at least my understanding of the teachings here, we're invited not to go and do the inquiry when we're very upset, because the wrong mind would hijack the inquiry very quickly.
And the mind has, I love the mind. The mind is so creative. In those moments, it is so creative to give me the best reasons why to not do what I'm asked to do, or it's just sometimes it's really sweet when I become more and more the observer. It's just really sweet how the mind is, and it's still kind of a way of nature trying to protect. So becoming compassionate with a not well-serving mind.
So again, anyone want to bring a question or a comment or anything, please just raise your hand, or if I don't see it, unmute. And while I'm waiting for that, the next topic that is coming up for me to talk to you about, you and I were having a conversation about the dyads and rooms, and there's something that you said that feels very much in alignment with a lot of what we do here, and I'd love for you to talk about it. You said to me, we're only going to do it if it's easy. At least that's the way it came. If there appears to be struggle, or if it feels like we're forcing anything, then we're not going to do it. Can Can you talk about where that comes from and how you got into that space?
Yeah, for me, when I started the program, I knew that to commit myself on a long-term basis, which I thought it's just possible when it is with ease. It's just the way that's my experience. Whenever I know myself, when I force myself into something that doesn't really go with ease, it doesn't mean it's just, there has to be a sense of ease, of not pushing myself to do something that is not going to last. I just know that. So that's also how the program or the diet, the additional diet evolved. It was whenever I knew this is going to be easy to keep the time and the continuity. And for those people who sign up or wanted to become hosts, I always said, listen, if this is easy for you, can you do this with ease? And if the people said no, then it just doesn't work. And then I said, foremost, much more than trying to just do well or good for the others, try to check, is it possible for you? People will adjust because it's a free program. People, if they are called to come, they will adjust. So it's not you who have to adjust to them and stretch, and then it's not fun anymore, but it's for you.
Yeah.
So maybe one moment.
And just to add to that, what I've learned over the years, one of the things that had occurred with this concept of allowing organic growth and following guidance is also this getting really quiet and listening. I've learned more by being a host and then training other hosts within this intuitive space on how to A, listen, and B, how to trust. And also, it's interesting, I was about to talk about holding boundaries within the dyad space, but it's not so much about holding boundaries as it is trusting that everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be, and that when I'm in a dyad, either hosting or as a participant, no matter what is going on, no matter what crisis may or may not be occurring in the moment, it's always an opportunity for my healing, regardless of how it looks for another. And that's sort of a concept that I didn't even know I was learning until I now step into these situations and into these groups and the different, you were talking about being in spiritual community where people were butting heads and using the teachings as a weapon. What I'm learning and what many of the hosts and the regular participants are learning is that we're all the same. And conditioning or trauma, I think what you call trauma in my space, I just call conditioning, can have temporary fits and manifest in different ways. But if it feels like it's creating conflict, it's only because it's hitting my conditioning or my trauma. And as that is being healed, it feels like the entire group is just becoming more cohesive. Does that align with?
It is. And what I would like to add, as we did speak about trauma, and also setting boundaries. I mean, in the we didn't talk about boundaries in the beginning, and it's much more about, I call it guidelines, and having really hoping to be, becoming more aware as the community that we co-create a safe space. So we did give guidelines to people, and, you know, we're also attracting, of course, people with really, really deep trauma. And for people who come to the diets, sometimes maybe it's for them just the first time that they are really listened to. And then there might be confusion, because the diet is, even though one participant once said, it is a therapy without a therapist. As much as I love that quote, then it also bears some difficulties, because sometimes people come who really do have to go into therapy, and then they just don't know the boundaries and don't know the format, and then they bring in their highly traumatic stuff, which then, of course, also has an impact on the other person. So because we're online, we just try to do as good as we can to provide clarity. And if things like this happen, we just have, I then just talk to those people and really tell them, give them some advice and some guidance in what is possible and what is not possible. So, but this is very, very few that this comes. So it's something about learning also what's okay for me and what's not okay for me. And if we have difficulties about that, if we don't have clarity, it is most likely a trauma response again, because not being clear about our own boundaries or having difficulties to set boundaries can be a trauma response. And then again, just to have the awareness and then learn from it. So, yeah, it's all about that co-creation and also having guidelines. Not so much, I want you to hold and stick to the guidelines. And if you don't do, then I'm getting triggered and I tell you how to do. No, if this is on a normal basis, I would just say, oh, I can use this as something I noticed. There is stuff coming up for myself. So I would just say, use the breathing or use the havening to regulate myself and take it as a chance to clear what's still emerging inside of me, instead of projecting it on the other person. So the diet process is, on one side, I said not just another meditation process, but it is really a highly skill-building process in so many ways.
So the Global Dyad Meditation Community and Awakening Together are pretty much where I spend most of my time. You know, they're homes to me, and I'm feeling inspired. And it was interesting because, Simone, after you visited us here a couple of weeks ago, somebody came to me and said, man, other than the accent, she could have been Regina. Just talking about following inner guidance, having everybody come in pretty much being the same, having a free space to explore. And so truly the community that I've learned, you know, I've learned by connecting with people really from all. I was keeping track for a while. I thought it was important for a while. I stopped counting when I got up to 25 countries to do dyads with people in 25 countries. What I discovered is that we're all the same. You know, we love the same and we respond to wounds the same way. And a rooster makes the same noise in Australia that it does in New York. Cats are just as frolicky, you know, in Germany as they are in New York. The thing, though, is one of the things about your community is it's so interesting. We're doing the same work, but it's not necessarily a spiritually rooted. It's more let's make life better. The language feels different for a lot of people that come into the space from NVC or other places, but the desire is the same. The focus is the same. The practice and listening is the same. The open door policy, both within the Global Dyad Meditation Project, especially, and the love feels the same. And I don't even try to guess how I got to either one of these communities. I'm just feeling really, really grateful, and I'm feeling very grateful for your presence here. I told everybody in the beginning, you know, I can't believe we've been here just about 90 minutes. I was going to tell everybody what we were going to do, and then we were going to have this conversation, and then remind you what we learned. And key to it is when you say yes to inner guidance and the desire to be of service, the world opens up, and crazy, beautiful, wonderful things can be created through you and around you and for others through you. And your story is just such a fabulous testimony to that. And I'm excited to see what happens next. And super grateful for your presence here. Wondering if there's more you'd like to share, and if there's still time for questions, you know. If anybody wants to speak into this room, now would be the time. But what would you like to close with, Simone?
I mean, what's still here for me, talking about the Global Dyad, you know, this is really, for me, guided from above. It's something that is meant to happen and helpful for so many people. And so we are kind of just doing what is meant to happen, and it will last as long as it will last. And when there's something else, then something else will come. So I'm quite relaxed about that. Let me just get Emma again.
And then you can answer Rhoda's wondering, I think an Embrace program just started, right? Because I think Diane is in it. She's here. And I think it just started. Did it just start this week or last week?
It started this week, yes. So next week is the second time.
Yeah, yeah. So and do you know when the next one will be?
Most probably I will start the beginning of February.
So they happen, and they're growing. The classes are growing, right? How large is?
Well, last time we had 80 people, which was really a lot of people, and I'm very happy that the German. I do both. There's a German class running right now. There we have like 40 now, and the English one is about 20 right now, which I'm very, very happy, because it's more, you know, I don't have to have big groups. I love when it's smaller groups, so I'm happy if they are not as big. So at the moment it's rather a smaller group. We will see how it's unfolding, but I'm not looking for large groups.
Understood. All right. Well, I think Emma says you're done.
She definitely has something that is bothering her, and something out there in the dark.
Well, on behalf of all of us at Awakening Together, just thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And Simone and her work is very, very easy to find at the Global Dyad Meditation Project at SimoneAnliker.com, through me, doggy trauma. And I'm looking forward to whatever next is next. Thank you so much. This 90 minutes just flew by.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's just pleasure to be here. And yes, you had a taste of my Emma, who is actually traumatized. She had surgery 2 months ago and still very anxious. So we're working on it.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you again for watching our Satsang. We'd love for you to visit our community at awakening-together.org. There are plenty of free resources, and also you can join us live right in our sanctuary. We hope to see you there. Please remember to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so that every time we have a satsang or any other teachings like our weekly gatherings, you will be alerted. Thank you again for watching.